With that, we will move on to House File 562. Representative Urdahl, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move my bill. Is this for possible inclusion? Is that what we're looking at here? What are we doing?
Yes, it'll be laid over for possible inclusion, correct?
Say likely inclusion? Is that what you said? Oh, possible. I always get that mixed
There
up.
you go. All right, thank you, Representative Urdahl. And would you like to proceed to your bill?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, this has been an effort that I have been engaged in I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, trying to get this, and we've come close. I think it's particularly important this year in light of being on the Select Committee of Racial Justice and all this. The basic elements of this bill were recommended as one of the proposals from that committee as well. So thank you for that, Representative Richardson. So civics is in a state of crisis. Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor stated, "We are facing a crisis in civics education." The National College Board reports that the most important skills correlated with success in college are computer science and the United States Constitution. Surveys that I've seen show that 77% of Americans between 18 and 34 can't name even one of their U.S. senators. 2/3 of Americans can name at least one judge on American Idol. 15% can name the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. 2/3 of Americans can name only one branch of our government, and 1/3 can't name any. The National Association of Education Progress, NAEP, which is called the nation's report card, reported that 3rd graders show progress in civics knowledge. 8th grade knowledge level flatlines, and civics in Minnesota, when it's taught, is mostly taught in 9th grade. Seniors graduate with a proficiency rate of about 23%. So over about 77% of the students who graduate from our high schools are failing today in knowledge of civics. And that's what this has all been about for me, to try to raise the relevance of civics to improve the attainment of knowledge. So why do we have these problems? First, the focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, is very important, and it needs to be taught. But as it's taught, something else has to give. And this is largely pushed out civics and history. The Civics Now Coalition reports that in federal spending, $54 a student a year is given to STEM education, and 5 cents per student per year for social studies. Now, local school boards face challenges in balancing the curricula that they have, the demand for these STEM courses, the demand for other electives. And so those are challenges that they face in putting in or emphasizing others. Nordic educators work hard to cultivate each student's connection to their nation, and we largely fail to identify national terms. When taught effectively, students can equip students with the knowledge and dispositions necessary to become informed and engaged citizens. Former Senator Larry Pressler, now a college professor, commented about high school civics. They're not learning it there. It isn't being taught. In Minnesota, we require 3.5 credits of social studies, encompassing at least United States history, geography, government, and citizenship, world history, and economics, sufficient to satisfy all of the academic standards in social studies. There is no assigned credit requirement to teach civics in Minnesota. Civics is supposed to be taught, but we can't guarantee it. And in fact, in some areas, it's not being taught. So, page stuck together. Do this one. What this bill does, it requires civics to be credit bearing within the 3.5 current credits. I'm not trying to assign that there has to be 1 credit in civics or half a credit or a quarter credit. That's up to local school boards. But what I'm saying is that it needs to be credit bearing. It also needs to be taught to juniors or seniors. These are obviously the older uh, students in our school who are ready to learn. They're ready to be voters. In ninth grade, they're not caring about the three branches of government. They're not caring about what's going on in the world of politics because they're years removed from it. It doesn't mean a lot to them. But juniors and seniors are ready to take that next step and to become participating members of our society in terms of voting. Now, there have been various concerns, and I have worked over the years with the School Board Association and other groups trying to formulate a plan that can be acceptable and can work for all concerned. There are at one time concerns expressed about electives. Um, can we still teach the electives? Can we do what we need to do and meet the things that the students want? Um, so what I did is, and here there's a little mistake, Madam Chair. I had a couple of bills that are quite similar, and there's some language that needs to be inserted in this bill. I can easily do that when it's being laid over. What it does is it puts in advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or other rigorous courses on government or citizenship in addition to the course being offered. In other words, the concern about electives, the concern about not being able to do baccalaureate classes, not being able to do these other things is addressed by this amendment, which says that they can take the place of a civics course if they have some type of government component. And I've talked with Ms. Para about that, and the amendment is already drawn. So we can get that. So one other comment. This is from an 1828 textbook. Remember that a constitution which gives to the people so much freedom and entrusts them with so much power rests for its permanency on their knowledge and virtue. An ignorant people are easily betrayed, and a wicked people can never be ruled by the mild influence of their own laws. From an 1828 textbook. You have received from the School Board Association and Metropolitan School Districts a letter. I have met with them about that, and I think that we are within range of reaching some agreements to accommodate the concerns of that they have and concerns that I have in getting a good bill that can be supported. Well, I can't say universally, but largely. So again, that letter that you have, I have addressed and will continue to. The particular part they have in there on economics or personal finance, that's one change in the bill, that a student can receive credit for taking economics or personal finance. Now, this is needed. Our students need to do a better job, I think, of preparing for the future and understanding their personal finance. But if it doesn't fit in here particularly, or there are concerns about how to make this work better, I'm willing to work with various groups to reach that goal so that we can get this important provision included somewhere. So that basically is the bill. It's why we need to do the bill. And I do have some testifiers that would like to amplify a little bit.
Thank you, Representative Urdahl, for that. I've got 3 testifiers on the list here. Do you have a preference to the order that they're called?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
First on the list, I have the president of the Litchfield School Board, Duran Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Darren Anderson. I actually wear 2 hats. I'm the chairman of the Litchfield School Board, and I'm also a teacher in the Willmar Public Schools. So I would echo a lot of what Representative Urdahl has said. Civics is really important. Our students need to learn civics, especially this past year. The problem that Representative Urdahl pointed out is that most civics is taught in 9th grade, and I as a teacher have seen a lot of kids in 9th grade. This isn't going to impact me, it doesn't affect me. And so they don't really learn, they don't really want to take into account. But this past election really amplified why it's important for students to understand. I teach American history, and I had kids coming in every day asking about the 2020 election, about, I mean, think about it too. When is the last time we've seen the Electoral College get as much publicity and students asking about it? So to understand the process, students want to know. I went as far as integrating civics into my American history classroom by printing out an article about an issue that what one of the candidates was looking at, and we would read it, we talk about it, how it impacted them. So students want to know, they want to learn. As a school board member in Litchfield, we passed a resolution as a school board supporting Representative Urdahl's bill of teaching civics in the classroom. Also, too, Litchfield is doing this. We offer American government for juniors and seniors with that civics component, and they still have over 40 electives that they can take. So this is very doable. So civics is very important. We need to teach these kids how to register to vote, how a bill becomes a law. My students right now are watching me do this and looking at the process. As juniors and seniors, they want to know. They're engaged. So it's very important to teach it at this level. Secretary of State Steve Simon, the last 2 years or last 4 years, has presented Minnesota Votes. We need to promote civics now, not every time there's election. So teaching these kids civics is very important. And I would like to see this bill passed to engage our students, to educate them, because we want more participants and more voters. Here's our opportunity to do it. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, I have Judge Michael Thompson from the 8th Judicial District.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I've known Mr. Urdahl for many, many years, and we've had conversations about this. My experience by sitting on the bench included a number of items, but the most important one was that most people that come into the judicial branch really have no idea what we're supposed to be doing, what our mission is, and how it works. Their information has been gleaned from television programs that they've watched, beginning with the old Perry Mason series years and years ago, where they're always expecting somebody to stand up and admit that they did it at the end of the program, which doesn't happen. But it was also, I gleaned that a lot of our people do not understand our Constitution. They've never had any class where they actually had to take the time to read the Constitution. And so you hear folks always saying, well, that's got to be unconstitutional. That can't be right. And yet they don't know what they're talking about because they never even read it. They need some exposure to this. I taught a class one time where I actually brought in a bunch of the amendments, and the one that got the most reaction from the females in the class was showing them when they were granted the right to vote. They've been taking it for granted for years, and they had no clue that they couldn't vote back in the 1800s. So, so if you can train these folks and give them some background on how our system works, I think they become a lot more, I think it's easier for them then when they run into conflict to be able to see how the system is supposed to work and try and follow that path and treat the different branches of government the way and have an understanding of how they work. And then don't get so upset when they don't think it's working the way it's supposed to, because now they have a basis to say, well, it is supposed to work this way. Let's let it work this way. And then we will accept the results. But right now we have a lot of folks who won't even accept the results because they don't think it was done properly, but they really don't know how it was supposed to be done in the first place. So that's what I've been trying to support on this. I know we have all these different areas that people want to be educated in, but a citizenry that doesn't understand how their government works essentially is leading us to lose that type of government, because they go all off in different directions. And I think as we saw just in the last year, we've had a terrible split amongst people, families breaking up over over issues, and in large part, it was issues that if they had some knowledge about how our system works, the three parties of government, that maybe those terrible discussions and wouldn't have happened. So I support this a lot. I think we need to let our young people know that there are three parts of government, what each part of government is responsible for, and how you go about accessing each one of those. And I think that would be really helpful. So that's my comments on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Thompson, for your testimony. Up next, we have Lisa Larson with the Minnesota League of Women Voters.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Larson, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters Minnesota to support Representative Urdahl's bill, House File 562. Improving civics education is a great concern of the League of Women Voters Minnesota. League members think a good civics education gives students the knowledge and skills they need to effectively participate in civic life and helps prepare students for their roles as citizens. House File 562 requires students at a minimum to take a civics course in 11th or 12th grade when they are close to becoming first-time voters. For these almost voters, civics is immediate and real. Learning about voting and engaging with public officials should be a personally meaningful experience. I wish to briefly raise 4 points. 1, civics education is critical to strengthening American democracy. The founding fathers saw education as the way to safeguard America's system of self-government and help voters choose their leaders wisely. 2, a long-standing tension exists in schools between educating students to be skilled workers and responsible citizens. Both goals are important and must work in tandem. Schools today emphasize preparing students for work and higher education much more than they emphasize preparing students to be engaged and effective citizens. As Representative Urdahl noted, many high school students are not proficient in civics. In 2014, only 23% of students achieved a score of proficient or above on the NAEP civics test. There was no significant change in the 2018 average NAEP civics scores. 3, civics is not consistent statewide. It varies as to whether civics is a separate course or the civics content standards are embedded in another social studies course. And it varies in what grade 9 to 12 students receive civics instruction. Students who take civics in 9th grade may never take another civics-related course in high school. 4, civics literacy is key to transforming knowledge into practice. A good civics education emphasizes the importance of project-based learning and fosters a culture of civic engagement and community problem solving. Civics is not synonymous with history. Civics gives students the ability to apply the knowledge and skill sets they learn in history. A high quality civics education lets students engage in model democratic processes, participate in the civic life of their communities, and learn from practical experiences. To conclude, a civics education is important because it profoundly affects the role of citizens and citizens' ability to participate in a democracy. Improving civics education should have nonpartisan support across the political spectrum. Strengthening American democracy is an interest we should all share in common. Please support House File 562. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larson, for your testimony. In regards to public testimony, we currently have one public member signed up, Justin Whitrock.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it. Good afternoon. My name is Justin Whitrock. I'm a business teacher at Litchfield High School, and I represent over 150 business teachers as the president of the Minnesota Marketing, Business, and Information Technology Educators Association. I'm going to speak to the language about the personal finance and economics component. The language in this bill says that students can take econ or personal finance. When we've had personal finance bills try and come up as a requirement, administrators have had a problem with adding an additional requirement to it, and similar to the civics issue. But with this one, it gives students the opportunity to choose what is best for them, because it allows students a choice in taking personal finance instead of economics. The economic standards include many micro and macroeconomics concepts that do not pertain to all students the same way that getting an in-depth training and knowledge of loans, credit cards, budgeting, insurance, taxes, and et cetera does. In the current econ standards, personal finance is part of only 4 out of 34 substrands. So when we hear people say that personal finance is covered in econ, it's not covered well enough. In the newly proposed social studies standards, in the econ section, personal finance is only part of 19 out of the 93 benchmarks. So even as we update it, the newly updated ones, it still doesn't have enough in it. So an economics class does not provide enough personal finance, especially if you are not raised in a home where good personal finance strategies are discussed or even practiced. And that's where, if students don't get this in high school, where are they going to get it? Right now, there's students that they are taking because they have to take econ. They also take personal finance, which then limits their ability to take other classes as well. In many districts, personal finance is taught by the career and technical educators, that's business, facts, or ag. These teachers develop, as part of their licensure programs, content, knowledge, and skills for delivering personal finance, so there wouldn't be any need for additional training in this addition to make the graduation requirements. There are also significant personal finance benchmarks and standards already written into CTE subject areas at both the state and national level, so developing the standards wouldn't be an overwhelming task either. Also, the ability for personal finance to be taught as an alternative to economics could also allow districts the potential to access Perkins Fund levy dollars when CTE teachers are the ones teaching it. So if the personal finance is being taught by a CTE teacher, which again is business, facts, or ag, schools can access the Perkins Fund levy dollars, which would pay up to 35% of a teacher's salary. Okay, so there is some sort of economic benefit to districts as well. Students are currently required to take an economics class, but because of scheduling limitations, they're unable to take personal finance. So they're not always given that opportunity. But there are students on a university track that would benefit from taking economics, so they can still take that class and get some personal finance content. Other students would benefit most from taking a full comprehensive personal finance class, so these students can choose this option. This gives students, it gives teachers, and it gives the administrators a lot of flexibility in trying to provide students with an education in personal finance, which is a significant issue within our state and national economy. And with that, I appreciate the time. And if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you for your testimony. At this time, is there anyone else logged into the Zoom who wishes to speak for or against this bill? Please use the raise hand feature. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to member questions. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Urdahl, for bringing this bill. We went through that amendment very quickly. Is it possible, Representative Urdahl, for you to go through that amendment again, or perhaps Ms. Para
Right.
walk through the amendment?
Yes, I could.
Representative
Madam
Urdahl.
Chair. All right, I'm on my other screen. I'll read what it would be to you. Okay, moves to amend House File 562 as follows. Page 1, line 21, after later, insert, or an advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or other rigorous course on government and citizenship under section 120B.021, subdivision 1A.
Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions with this.
Let me add that amendment largely has met the concerns that school administrators and the school boards had.
Thank you.
Representative Moeller.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks Representative Urdahl for bringing this bill and for your passion surrounding this issue. I had a question about something that was raised in one of the letters we got regarding the test that's given, and I think some of the testifiers spoke to at least the national statistics on how poorly students do on that civics test. And I think one of the recommendations from the letter was that the state not require that test anymore. And I was just curious what your thoughts were about that. And then also, I was just curious to know how it's administered now. Do most teachers give that as part of the course, or how that works?
Representative Urdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Moeller, first, the test referenced earlier with the low proficiency rate, that's not the one that you are referring to. The test that is given in Minnesota and in many areas across the country is based on the naturalization citizenship test. For example, Wisconsin gives it, they have to pass it to graduate from high school, and that's in a lot of states. In Minnesota, it's a 50-question test, again, based on the immigration test. It is aligned with our current social studies standards and reviewed by Learning Law and Democracy, which is a civics teacher organization. And they have to pass 30 of those 50 questions. And my assumption is that most of them are doing quite well. However, we do not have a reporting requirement in the state of Minnesota. All students are supposed to take the test before they graduate, but there is no requirement that they have to pass the test, no requirement that the test is reported anywhere beyond the classroom teacher. In terms of the future of the test, it is currently a required test in the state of Minnesota. As we go through the process, it will be subject to more of the discussion as we try to reach an amicable agreement on getting the civics moving.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just curious if we know how teachers feel about that test. Maybe don't have a correct sample size here, but maybe the teachers that are on here, Mr. Anderson, maybe if you would speak to how you offer that test to students, I'd be curious to know about that.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Moeller. In the summer, I teach at a juvenile detention center, so I have year-round school. So I do teach a big civics component, and then I administer the test. Some of it's taken from the naturalization test. Some are the questions that are based on things that we covered in class. So I give them the test. It's a 50-point test. I give it at one time. And then I take their scores and then I send them to our director, who puts them on their transcript so that when the student goes to another school, it follows them and says, hey, they took the civics test. It's not turned into the state, but it's showing that they've taken it and if they've passed it. If they have not, I give the student an opportunity to retake the test.
Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all.
Vice Chair Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rep. Urdahl, for this. I know your passion for civics, so I won't ask too many questions. I just want to mention, so as an immigrant, as many of you guys know, I came here to this country as an immigrant, and I had to take that civic test, and it's 100 questions. And immigrants are required to know how to read and write and pass that civics test. And I remember in my first year of college, was right after I took my citizenship test and became a citizen. I was taking political science class, and the professor decided to just throw that test to the students. And I was the only student that passed that test, and only because I just took my citizenship test, not because I've learned any other questions from our schools. But my question for you, Rep, is, as you know, there's a lot of, we are at a point I would say, a racial awakening in our country, and many people are talking about ethnic studies. Would you support ethnic studies to be included in our social studies? Because, I mean, I was educated in this country and I had to actively take ethnic studies in college and pay for it in order for me to get maybe a glimpse of what happened in our country as far as people who are non-whites go. All I knew was that the people that look like me, the only contribution that they had in our country was that they were enslaved and they fought for their freedom, and that was it. And we know that's inaccurate. The same goes for our indigenous communities and all the other non-whites. So would you support and advocate for ethnic studies to be included in our social studies?
Uh,
Representative Urdahl.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Fazan. Let me answer that last. Another quick comment first on Representative Mueller. First of all, even if we didn't have this test, those questions should be asked. I mean, we are supposed to be teaching civics, and there should be a civics test, whether it's mandated by the state or not. So I'm assuming that a lot of these questions should be asked anyway. Regarding Representative Hassan, yes, I mean, I think that we need to do a better job in ethnic education in Minnesota, especially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that ethnic studies includes the study of the culture of people, and we have a diversified country. It's becoming more diversified, and it is important to understand and study the cultures, and I guess then that would be ethnicity of all the diverse groups. Does that answer your question? And do we tie culture and ethnicity together?
Vice Chair Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, but what I'm trying to echo in my comment and my question is that our education is Eurocentric view of the world. It's not, it doesn't highlight any other cultures. It doesn't highlight any other people. It highlights our students learn everything that happened in Europe, but we don't learn anything else in the world. So like my question is just like, refocusing on are we gonna teach our kids about the rest of the world and the rest of the people that are in the world with us? And we're living in a global village. In 1960s, it was okay to it was never okay, but it was more normalized to teach people that, there are only white people in the world, the rest of the people are non-existent. But today we're living in a global village. So, mainstream kids are missing out if they would never find out that, the contribution of African Americans and Asian Americans and Latino Americans, as well as our indigenous communities and everyone else. So that's where I'm trying to highlight is that I wish your bill had that, like ethnic studies included in it, and I would be super excited about it. But that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Urdahl, do you have a comment?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, combining into this with the, I got to stick to what I'm trying to get done over these last few years. Now, that doesn't mean that with the standards under review right now, that Representative Hassan, what you are talking about, should not be an important part of that discussion. And so I think that a lot of the concerns that you have are going to be addressed when we reach the end of the road on the standards.
Thank you, Representative Urdahl. Vice Chair Hassan, anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Urdahl, again for this discussion. I actually grew up in a state where it had a law where this is pretty similar. And I really remember the thing I remember from it is even though I was a good student and kind of a government nerd, which probably shouldn't come as a surprise, I'm sure a lot of people on this call were, I remember that test being extremely stressful. And I took it when I was in 9th grade, and I was very worried that I would fail it and not be able to graduate from high school. And as a result, I remember the grade I got on 2 tests in my entire life, and it was the Illinois civics exam or the Illinois Constitution exam and the ACT. Can you talk to me a little bit about how students feel about this exam? I know we've heard a lot of testimony about how students are very stressed out about school and mental health right now, and I wouldn't want to burden them with another thing to stress them out. So can you talk to me a little bit about how students feel about this requirement? But I also think there's a lot that students really welcome here too. So I don't know what insight you have there.
Representative
thank you.
Urdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Jordan. Representative Jordan, you want to tell us what your score was on your test? You don't have to.
Representative Jordan.
Yes, I'm very proud to tell you my score on this test because I got a perfect score, Representative Urdahl.
Representative Urdahl.
Very good. And that's really, I mean, when I have asked, like I called into Milwaukee at 3 urban inner city schools, and all of the schools had an average score in the 90s. Students were doing very well. In terms of in Minnesota, I have not received complaints from students. Basically, when I was proposing to do this in the first place, students were saying, no, we don't want it, because, well, obviously, if you're a student and I say, I want to give you another test, you're not going to be welcoming. But the fact is that they do have to take this test in Minnesota, but essentially there's no pressure. They don't have to pass the test to graduate, as it is in some states. It should be they're taking the test. When I taught, my tests were part of my learning process. And I would hope that by taking the test, it is helping them to learn, because this is important to know. And, like I've said, they can also keep taking it until they pass it, if that's the teacher's prerogative. And not a lot of pressure. I've likened it to athletics. If my team is down by 1 point and I get fouled taking a shot at the buzzer, so I've got 2 free throws, that's pressure. But if I'm taking a test and if I flunk it, I can still take it again and again until passing. There's not a whole lot of pressure. So I don't think that the test is a big aggravation to our students in Minnesota.
Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Urdahl. I think legislators probably we all really care quite a bit about civics and making sure that we have students that understand the processes that we go through. So please keep going at this, and I'm sure we'll figure something out.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, maybe we should give the test to all the legislators and publish their scores.
Well, I will let all of the members determine if they're willing to be as free with their scores as Representative Jordan is. Representative Christensen. You are on mute, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks to both the Rep. Poston and Rep. Urdahl. Rep. Urdahl, I especially like, so I hope it gets to stay in the bill. I like your personal finance inclusion in there. I think it's so important, and I think there's way too many young people. I've got an 18-year-old grandson who is, they don't get it. They don't get it, what it takes to really to manage your own finances in this world. So I want to thank you for including that, and I certainly hope it can move on. And Representative Poston, thank you so much for introducing this. I know I'm from, it's called the suburbs now, but in my school district in Stillwater, our ag department is very, very popular. And it's not just amongst people that want to farm. They're learning how to grow prairie plants and how to plant prairies. They're having plant sales. They're having, there's much to be included in those programs. So thank you both of you for bringing these bills up. Thanks much.
Thank you, Representative Christensen. Representative Urdahl, I will give you last words on your bill.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate the discussion. Again, congratulations to Representative Jordan and Representative Hassan for doing so well on the test. But unfortunately, as we have indicated, scores in Minnesota, NAEP scores show that Minnesotans are not doing very well when they graduate from high school in terms of proficiency. And so for the future, as these scores indicated, as current events indicate, we need to do something better. And what we are doing right now for civics education in Minnesota is not working for all students. And that's the purpose of this and why I'm asking that it move forward and we get it done this year. So thank you, Representative Richardson.
Thank you, Representative Urdahl. So House File 562 is laid over for possible inclusion, and there being no